The atmosphere changed the moment Tian Xiwei and Weiming stepped into the scene together. What should have been just another performance suddenly felt different, almost too intimate to be dismissed as ordinary acting. The cameras were rolling, the lights were perfectly placed, and every movement appeared carefully rehearsed, yet there was something about the way they looked at each other that made the moment feel unexpectedly real. Tian Xiwei carried that familiar brightness that can make even a simple expression feel unforgettable, but beside Weiming, her energy seemed to shift into something softer and more restrained. The scene demanded closeness, emotional timing, and a level of trust between the performers, and as they moved through it, viewers were left staring at the screen wondering why the chemistry felt so intense. It was not necessarily because anything romantic was happening behind the scenes, but because the performance created the illusion of a private emotional world that existed for only a few seconds. And sometimes, those few seconds are enough to make millions of people stop, rewind, and ask themselves what they just witnessed. The most striking part was not simply the physical closeness. It was the expression on Tian Xiwei's face when the scene reached its emotional peak. There was a brief softness in her eyes, followed by a subtle change in her posture, as though she had completely disappeared into the character. Weiming responded with the same level of intensity, allowing the scene to breathe rather than rushing through it. The result was a moment that felt far more emotionally charged than anyone might have expected. Fans who had watched Tian Xiwei in countless performances already knew how naturally she could transform for a role, but this particular interaction created a different kind of conversation. People began focusing on every glance, every pause, every movement between the two performers. A tiny change in expression suddenly became something worth analyzing. A moment of silence seemed louder than dialogue. A simple look across the scene appeared to carry an entire story. And somewhere in the middle of all that excitement came the question that instantly made the moment even more intriguing. What would Zhang Linghe think if he saw this? That question spread because Zhang Linghe and Tian Xiwei have already created a powerful on-screen connection in the eyes of their fans. Their shared scenes have often been remembered not because they were necessarily loud or dramatic, but because of the small details that made their interactions feel effortless. A glance held for an extra heartbeat, a smile appearing at exactly the right moment, a reaction that seemed spontaneous rather than perfectly rehearsed. These are the details that viewers remember long after a scene ends. So when Tian Xiwei appeared in an intimate-looking performance with someone else, it was almost inevitable that comparisons would begin. Fans started imagining how Zhang Linghe might react, whether he would laugh it off, whether he would remain completely professional, or whether there might be that tiny flicker of surprise that only someone paying close attention could notice. But there is an important difference between what viewers imagine and what is actually known. A dramatic expression does not automatically prove jealousy, and a viral moment does not reveal someone's private feelings. The mystery is powerful precisely because nobody can truly see inside another person's heart. What made the scene so addictive was the contrast between what the camera showed and what viewers believed they were seeing underneath it. On camera, Tian Xiwei and Weiming were performers committed to creating an emotional moment. Off camera, they are individuals with their own lives, friendships, careers, and boundaries. Yet entertainment has a strange ability to blur those lines. When two performers create convincing chemistry, the audience can begin emotionally connecting the fictional relationship with the real people portraying it. That is why a single scene can generate thousands of theories within hours. People begin asking whether the chemistry was planned, whether the reaction was spontaneous, whether someone looked nervous, whether someone smiled differently, whether another person watching from somewhere might have noticed it. The imagination fills the gaps that the camera cannot answer. And that is where the Zhang Linghe question becomes so fascinating. If he were watching the scene, would he simply see another professional performance? That would be the most reasonable assumption. Actors understand better than anyone that intimacy on screen can be created through timing, choreography, camera angles, emotional preparation, and trust between performers. A scene that looks incredibly personal to viewers can actually be the result of careful technical work. Yet human emotions are rarely as simple as logic makes them sound. Even someone who understands the profession completely can still experience a fleeting reaction. Surprise does not necessarily mean jealousy. Amusement does not necessarily mean indifference. Curiosity does not necessarily mean romantic feelings. A person can understand that something is acting and still have an emotional response to seeing it. That ambiguity is what makes this story so compelling. Imagine the room after the scene ends. The lights remain bright, the cameras stop, the performers step away from the emotional world they were creating. Someone on set checks the footage. Someone adjusts a costume. Someone prepares for the next take. The intensity disappears almost as quickly as it arrived. But for the people watching later, the moment remains frozen. They see the same few seconds again and again, looking for something hidden inside the performance. Maybe it is the way Xiwei turns her head. Maybe it is the confidence in Weiming's expression. Maybe it is the brief pause before the scene ends. None of these details can reveal someone's private emotions with certainty, but together they create a feeling that is difficult to ignore. Xiwei has always possessed a particular ability to make expressions feel larger than the dialogue surrounding them. She can turn a smile into a story and a silence into an emotional beat. That quality is especially powerful in scenes requiring romantic tension because the audience does not need everything to be spoken aloud. Sometimes the smallest gesture creates the strongest reaction. In this case, her interaction with Weiming appeared to operate on exactly that level. The scene did not need exaggerated movement to create tension. It relied on proximity, eye contact, timing, and the quiet space between the characters. That restraint may actually be what made the moment feel more intimate than a much more dramatic performance would have been. And then there is Weiming, whose presence added another layer to the scene. Instead of treating the moment as something that needed to be overplayed, he matched the emotional rhythm. The chemistry worked because both performers allowed the scene to develop naturally. When two actors understand the emotional temperature of a scene, the camera can capture something that feels almost accidental. The audience begins to forget the technical machinery surrounding the performance. The lights disappear from their imagination. The cameras disappear. What remains are two people inside a moment. That is the magic of performance, and it is also the reason viewers sometimes become emotionally confused about where acting ends and reality begins. But perhaps the most interesting part of the entire conversation is that nobody actually needs to prove jealousy for the moment to be meaningful. The fascination comes from the possibility. Fans are curious because Zhang, Linghe and Xiwei have built a connection on screen that left a strong impression. When another performer enters a similarly intimate frame with Xiwei, viewers naturally compare the emotional atmosphere. They wonder whether the same magic exists. They wonder whether the dynamic feels different. They wonder how someone familiar with her acting style might interpret it. These questions can create enormous excitement without requiring anyone to claim that Zhang Linghe truly felt possessive or jealous. There is also something deeply human about imagining a reaction from someone who is not even part of the scene. We do it all the time. When we see two people share an unexpectedly close moment, we instinctively wonder what someone important to them might think. It is not always about romance. Sometimes it is about friendship, familiarity, history, or simply curiosity. In the world of entertainment, however, these imagined reactions can become much larger because fans already carry emotional memories from previous projects. A single glance can remind them of another drama. A similar gesture can bring back an old scene. A familiar smile can trigger an entire collection of memories. Suddenly, the present moment is no longer just one scene. It becomes connected to everything viewers remember. That may explain why the interaction between Xiwei and Weiming generated such a strong response. The scene itself existed in one moment, but the emotions surrounding it came from somewhere much bigger. Viewers were not only watching what was happening in front of them. They were bringing their previous experiences, favorite pairings, favorite scenes, and expectations into the moment. For some, the chemistry looked exciting. For others, it felt surprising. For longtime fans of Tian Xiwei and Zhang Linghe, it may have felt almost strange to see her create such a different dynamic with another person. And that difference is precisely what makes a talented performer impressive. An actor who can create believable chemistry with different scene partners is demonstrating range, not necessarily revealing a hidden relationship. Still, the question remains hanging in the air. If Zhang Linghe saw the scene, would he feel anything at all? There is no reliable way to know without hearing directly from him. Anything beyond that becomes interpretation. Maybe he would laugh. Maybe he would compliment the performance. Maybe he would simply move on to the next project. Maybe, like any human being, he might briefly react to the unexpected intimacy of the scene before reminding himself that it is part of the job. The truth could be completely ordinary. And yet the uncertainty is exactly what keeps people talking. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are built around questions that have no immediate answer. Did the moment feel different? Absolutely, to many viewers. Was the chemistry convincing? That is a matter of personal interpretation, but the intensity of the reaction suggests that the performance successfully captured attention. Does it prove Zhang Linghe was jealous? No. There is no basis for presenting an imagined reaction as a confirmed fact. But does the possibility make the moment more entertaining to discuss? Without question. There is another layer that deserves attention too: the pressure placed on actors when audiences become emotionally invested in their screen relationships. Tian Xiwei and Zhang Linghe may be celebrated for their chemistry, but both are performers whose careers extend far beyond any single pairing. They will work with different actors, enter different stories, portray different characters, and create new emotional worlds. That is part of what makes acting exciting. Every new scene partner introduces a different rhythm. Every new role creates a different version of the performer. Seeing Tian Xiwei create chemistry with Weiming does not erase what audiences loved about her previous collaborations. It simply shows that a talented performer can inhabit more than one emotional universe. And perhaps that is why the scene feels so memorable. It challenges the audience to separate the person from the performance while still allowing themselves to enjoy the emotion. You can feel the tension without claiming it is real. You can appreciate the chemistry without turning it into a confirmed relationship. You can wonder about Zhang Linghe's reaction without declaring that he was jealous. That balance is what keeps the mystery alive without destroying the magic of the moment. As the scene continues to circulate, people will probably keep replaying the same details. Someone will focus on Tian Xiwei's expression. Someone else will analyze Weiming's reaction. Another viewer will compare the scene with Tian Xiwei's previous romantic performances. And somewhere in the conversation, Zhang Linghe's name will continue appearing because audiences have already attached so much emotional meaning to his connection with Tian Xiwei on screen. That is the fascinating power of celebrity chemistry. Sometimes two people do not have to say anything at all for an audience to create an entire emotional narrative around them. But beneath all the speculation, there is something more beautiful happening. A well-performed scene can make people feel something. It can make them pause. It can make them remember another story, another character, another moment when a look seemed to say more than words. Tian Xiwei and Weiming succeeded in creating that kind of atmosphere. Whether someone sees it as romantic, dramatic, playful, or simply professional, the scene clearly gave viewers something to talk about. And perhaps that is the real reason the moment became so powerful. Because when the cameras are turned on, actors give us a story. When the cameras are turned off, the story belongs to them again. Everything we see is a fragment, a carefully captured moment that can feel enormous even when it lasts only a few seconds. We can interpret it, enjoy it, debate it, and wonder what might have been happening beyond the frame, but the private truth remains with the people who lived the moment. So was Zhang Linghe jealous? Maybe that is the question everyone wants answered, but perhaps the more interesting question is why so many people immediately imagine that possibility. The answer lies in the emotional history viewers have built around Tian Ziwei's performances and the powerful screen connection she has shared with Zhang Linghe. When a new scene creates unexpected chemistry, audiences naturally compare it with the memories they already carry. That does not prove anything about private feelings. It proves only that the previous connection left an impression strong enough to influence how viewers see the next one. And that is where the scene becomes more than a viral moment. It becomes a reminder of how powerful performance can be. A glance can create curiosity. A pause can create tension. Two actors standing close together can make an audience feel as though they are witnessing something private, even when the reality is simply two professionals doing their work. The mystery lives in that space between what we see and what we know. Perhaps, somewhere, Zhang Linghe watched the same scene and simply recognized good acting. Perhaps he smiled at the performance. Perhaps he noticed details that ordinary viewers missed. Perhaps he did not see it at all. There are countless possibilities, and none should be presented as fact without his own words. But the unanswered question remains irresistible because it invites imagination without requiring certainty. And maybe that is the secret behind why this moment continues to feel so intense. It does not give viewers everything. It leaves something unexplained. It creates a small emotional gap, and the human mind naturally wants to fill it. Was that glance simply part of the character? Was that hesitation written into the scene? Was that chemistry completely rehearsed? Did anyone watching feel unexpectedly surprised? We may never know every answer. What we do know is that Tian Xiwei and Weiming created a scene strong enough to make people stop and look twice. And when a performance can create that kind of reaction, it has already accomplished something powerful. Whether viewers see romance, drama, professional chemistry, or simply an unforgettable acting moment, the scene has become part of the conversation. The lights eventually fade. The cameras move on. The performers return to their ordinary lives. But the image remains in the minds of the people who watched it, replaying in a different way each time. For some, it will be remembered as a daring performance. For others, it will be the moment they began wondering about an unexpected pairing. And for fans of Tian Xiwei and Zhang Linghe, it may remain one of those scenes that triggers an impossible question every time it appears. If someone who knows her well was watching from the side, what would they have felt? Maybe the answer is jealousy. Maybe it is amusement. Maybe it is nothing more than professional appreciation. The truth belongs to the people involved, and until they choose to speak, the rest remains speculation. But that uncertainty is exactly what makes the moment unforgettable. Sometimes the most powerful stories are not the ones that give us an answer. They are the ones that leave us staring at the screen after the scene ends, wondering whether we just witnessed something ordinary disguised as something extraordinary, or something extraordinary hidden inside what looked like an ordinary performance.